So, hello and welcome back to the OSDC Perl course. Hi, Steve.
Hi.
So, talking about, we started to talk about Git flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, the Git flow is the funny thing is just today I updated the slides, the Git slides I have.
Okay.
With a bunch of processes that I started to write because I thought that I'm going to create. I'm planning to create slides for each of the types of. I don't know how to call them because flow would not be a good word for here. But the processes that you can follow depending on, are you a lone programmer or maybe sometimes you get pull some other people contribute to you, but they are not they don't have rights on your project, or if there are multiple people working on the same Git repository where everyone has basically the same rights, and then various ways to work. And one of them is Git flow, actually, the famous whatever Git flow that I remember a couple of years ago, I don't know, 5 years ago, I was I think I was excited about it, sort of, but lately a lot less. So we can go over a little bit about Git flow if you're interested.
Yep.
How it looks like. That has also, I guess it has a. Let me share the screen to see what. I don't have anything on my screen. It's just this README file, and I'm going to open the other browser. Close this one so it won't start running. And so Git flow, actually I think it's Code Maven slides Git, where I started to put down, write down this Git workflows. I started to, this is the sort of the various workflows. I need to update all the slides here, and here is specifically Git flow.
Okay.
So where is the chart? Oh, here's the chart. Okay. So it's how familiar are you with Git flow?
So we use HG flow, and HG flow is based on Git flow. So
HG flow?
the basic principles of it, I'm reasonably au fait with. HG flow, well, it's just exactly the same as Git flow. Well, I believe it is anyway. I guess there are going to be some differences because of the implementation, but the principle is the same.
So the question is really why do we need all these separate things? And I think partially it seems like a little bit of leftover from the time when we had releases, like monthly release and so on. And this is, I think Git flow is partially trying to mimic that kind of work, where you have like these big releases, and then people work separately in their own corner, preparing for that, working on their versions. And I think the companies that are the real high-speed companies, or some of them at least, they don't use this at the end relatively convoluted process, but they have one single branch, and you have to. So that forces real continuous integration. Once you have these millions of small branches, then you are not really integrating you and the other person and the third person continuously. Okay, you run on your own, you run your own tests, or I mean, so if you have this branch, okay, this yellow one, I think this is the, no, these ones are the feature branches. So I say, oh, this is the master. Okay, it's still master, whatever, main, doesn't matter. This is the release branch. Okay, let's say the one that's the production branch. Okay, where you have all the production code. And then the development goes on here, and then these are the feature branches. So within the feature branch, you might push it out and you run the tests, but you don't really integrate until you go to the merge back to the development branch. You don't integrate with anyone else. So if you are looking for real, so the closer you can get to continuous integration, real continuous integration, I think the better is. The more you can reduce work the sooner you will notice that there are frictions. Okay, so I think the whole idea of continuous integration is to reduce the time between the introduction of a bug or introduction of something that conflicts, okay, your development with someone else's development, okay, till the time you find it out, okay, and the closer you can get to this, the sort of the better. That's the philosophy of continuous integration, okay. And Git flow, as it is, it basically tells you, okay, go ahead, work on your branch, a week, 2 weeks, and in the meantime, you don't really know what's going on with the other people, right?
Yeah.
There is one thing that you can do, but it doesn't force you, but you can do, is continuously rebase your changes to the most recent version of dev. That way, at least you don't diverge too much from dev. So all the people who, by the time you merge into dev, at least those you know about. But still, there are others who might work in parallel to you, and you don't, unless you talk, and so you don't have, technically you don't check whether your changes and their changes have any conflict. And I'm not just talking about conflict on the Git level where you change the same line, but the general level that, okay, you change the signature of one function and they start to use the same function, with the old signature in some new code, which you will only notice once you merge together these changes and if you have tests covering their code. And depending on the language, okay, if it's compiled language, then by the time you merge, you notice it because the compilation will fail. But if it's a dynamic language like Perl or Python, then only at runtime you might notice that the signatures don't match up or something broken.
Yeah, I mean that is kind of true, but I would say in practice, we tend to work in, if somebody's working on something with 1 or 2 exceptions, the work we do tends not to overlap. If I'm doing something, then Simon is doing something completely different in practice, although, but what you say is absolutely true.
So this I mean, obviously there are companies or organizations where different people really work on really different stuff. But I think you mentioned this the super config file.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's basically a Perl file that's basically just has all the changes to the to the underlying system, the
Yeah.
database and any
So,
metadata that we've got. And that's an area of concern, because basically, obviously, most times you're going to change that configuration.
yeah.
Not so very often you're going to change that configuration. And if two people change the configuration, you know, often in ways that don't in principle conflict, you know, it's sort of like adding a table, say, something as simple as that. Somebody else adds a table, and but the problem is the way it's managed is that the merge management, if you like, often isn't clever enough to just say, oh, I can see this is just two things that have been added, and tries to merge in two different things and creates a mess, and you've got to undo it by hand. One of the things about Git, which I have been told, although I haven't seen in action, is that the actual merge is better with Git than with HG. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay.
To see how true it is. Yeah, but yeah, there's those kind of like areas of commonality, which I think it's very hard to avoid hitting. But generally speaking, with if Simon, who's the other person from a company on the course, is doing something and I'm doing something, then we're not going to be working in the same area in general. But yeah, there are conflicts all the time. Yeah, we got conflicts all the time,
Yeah.
which we have to work out.
I think the so why, okay, then let me ask the question, why don't you do your work on the main branch?
So I guess it's to avoid, I mean, if we did this and we were continually in theory, it reduces instability. At least that's part of the objective, because if, you know, despite what I just said, if I'm working on the main branch and I do something, well, I could just introduce a bug. Basically, I could make a mistake, and you know, believe it or not, it's been known. You know, when that happens, suddenly Simon's stuff stops working. Nothing to do with anything that he's done, and he's got to start looking around to see what's gone wrong, and eventually he works out there's something I've done, and we work out what's going on, fix it, and then we carry on.
Right.
And it's to avoid that, really, so he can get on and do whatever he's done with his thought, you know, just, I've got this problem to solve, this is what I'm going to do, and the same with me, and then we finish it, and hopefully at that point we've got the testing and the integration tests or whatever in place that we can tell that we've got rid of the stupid errors and it works.
So
within.
In this example you gave, that you made some changes and pushed it out, and those changes actually broke the stuff that Simon worked on. Are those changes already committed into Git, or are you talking about some changes that he's going to make now? Because if those are sorry.
Well, if he rebases, if I commit something and then he rebases, he's going to pick up my changes.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? I'm not quite sure what you're asking, what you're getting at. I mean, I would.
Right. So the thing is that now that, I mean, if okay, so let's go with this one. So you made some changes, you pushed it out to the main branch. Okay. It can be either, by the way, it can happen either when, and your code seems working with all the rest that's there. So this can happen both if you just work on the main branch, and also if you worked in a branch and then you are done, okay, or you feel that you're done, and now you merged into the main branch, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in both cases this can happen.
It can, but it's at a point that we know and are looking for problems, if you see what I mean. Whereas if I did this on not every time, but you know, if I were to do it on a periodic basis whilst I'm working along, particularly if it's not necessarily finished, then I could disturb what other people are doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
How does
whereas if we say, okay, this is finished, we've done some kind of, we do lots of testing, whatever it is. I mean, we can argue about how good the testing is, but we do the testing that we do. We got some QA people and stuff that come in and look at the stuff, and then we say, okay, now we're going to finish this branch, and it's going to go into develop, and then hopefully that has got rid of. I mean, I think you can never eliminate problems all the time. I mean, with all the best will in the world, all the testing stuff, that problem is going to exist. It's a question of just trying to deal with it, really, to minimize it. And
here is
stop
what,
interfering with other people.
So how does Simon find out about the breakage? He rebases?
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, so at the moment we're using HG, okay, so the rebasing doesn't exist. So he would work away at his stuff, and when he's finished, I mean, this is what we do. We work on, then we complete it, the work's tested, goes to QA, and when that's all passed and everybody's happy, we finish the branch and then it goes into develop. So yeah, there can be conflicts at that point, but again, we tend to know about it and stuff. If we were to basically check the stuff in to develop more regularly, or Simon was to rebase his stuff, I mean, he would be, the problem is he would then potentially get problems because of stuff that I'd done. Yeah. And obviously vice versa.
Exactly. But what happens if now both of you work on the, wait a second, but does he find out the problem by running some automated tests, or only he works and then suddenly something doesn't work?
At the moment, it would be the latter. It would be because he starts doing something and then it doesn't work anymore. So whatever it is, so he's working away, whatever it is, doing his own, obviously doing his own testing and stuff, and then that doesn't work. I mean, that it'll be partly automated tests, and to some extent, and at some point there will be QA people involved as well.
So this is the thing, I think, with continuous integration, and that because he has a long-running branch, okay, the more he's working on it, the higher the risk that there is going to be some conflict, something that breaks his code. Okay?
Yeah, I think that's you've got a case for that. I think, but I don't think. Okay, you were talking about like the more modern approach is actually to just not have this kind of release schedule and just more or less pump stuff out continuously. We're not in that situation. We are very much putting a release out every, say, quarter, something like that.
What kind of software do you write? I mean, it's a web thing that you can release anytime, or something that the client has to install?
No, we've got control over the software and its installation and stuff. I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
That's partly how quickly how often can you release? Technically, or theoretically, or legally, or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of the issue from a not a technical point of view, not a Perl point of view or anything, is the fact that if you put a new release in, then they themselves go through some testing. I mean, they actually get people hitting keys, and
this is the client.
The client, yeah. So it's we say here's the release, and they start doing some testing, and then hopefully they don't find any bugs, but if they do, we fix them, and then it goes live. And I mean, that's
yeah.
This has been going along. The systems. The initial version was written kind of quite a long time ago, and that was the sort of practice that people had then, and it's difficult to. I think that's more or less for us. I think that's more or less frozen. I mean, that quite a big change.
Yeah, that's a constraint that the client wants and needs to, or I don't know what word to use there, verify your control the release.
Yeah. So we're not going to do one every week or anything like that.
Yeah. But the idea of continuous, so there is this, when you talk about continuous integration and continuous delivery, these two different things.
Okay.
And and then there's the continuous deployment, okay, which is the third thing, but they are both CD.
Yeah.
So the continuous integration is making sure that all the code works together all the time. Okay, and getting feedback from within your own system as soon as possible, with the assumption that the longer you wait, the bigger the problems might be, the more difficult it's going to be to find the bug. Because so now I'm going back a little bit of what you said, that okay, when Simon encounters this, but if this happens every hour, then you know exactly that this commit, that the last commit that you made, that's what broke it. Now, if Simon can't, or you or anyone can't recognize that because you don't have automated tests, then it will get delayed. So
yeah,
the approach of having a single branch works together only if you really improve your test coverage.
Yeah,
that
is, I mean, obviously that's something that I think just about every environment, that's something that we're working on for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But it also sort of forces it.
But I think I remember you saying last time that if you've got a kind of a legacy system that doesn't have a lot of tests on it, so unit tests, that really it's but we have unit tests, but just the coverage is relatively low. But what we do have is really an excellent set of integration tests.
Okay.
And you're more or less saying that it's not really, you don't get much value out of sort of suddenly going mad and writing unit tests for everything that's there, because it kind of works.
Yeah, exactly. What I would do, I mean, if you have a nice, so when we are talking about test coverage, I don't mean, personally at least, I don't mean unit test coverage. I mean that it's more like feature coverage. That's more interesting. But what you can really measure is the code coverage. So, but if you have a good whatever we call it, integration test, acceptance test, doesn't really matter how we call it, something that runs the whole system, if that has a good coverage, then it's fine. Then this will break immediately if something is incorrect. And at that point, I would probably go, if something was changed incorrectly. And at that point, probably I would go in and write a unit test for that area.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing. I mean, I'm obviously, if any new stuff that's done,
that too,
or big, significant changes to modules, whatever, we're tending to write unit tests to cover that area. I mean, that's good because you're working on it. You can see, you understand what it's trying to do normally if you're working on it. So whereas if we just go randomly into the code, it's quite often quite difficult to work out the subtle aspects of the the business logic. Anyway, there we go. Yeah.
So this idea of the continuous integration is to as soon as possible verify that your change didn't break any other change, and then if the other person, Simon in this case, committed all of his changes except of the last one, okay, last hour's work is not there, not pushed out yet, okay, and you are now pushing out something that breaks his stuff, then unless your code breaks the stuff that he wrote in the last hour, the test system will notify you that you break it, you broke it. Okay, and you could actually even prevent that if you really wanted by pulling and running the test locally, if you can. Okay, so by working on the same branch, all of you together, actually you will, the person who breaks the code will get the blame on, or will get notified, and not the other person. So I think that actually having the working on the same branch and with frequent pushes and having the CI running there, assuming you have a good coverage on the application level, not necessarily unit tests. That will help you. And of course, also a question how long the test runs. If it runs 3 days, then that's not something that you can work with. So these tests should run within a few minutes.
Yeah, they don't.
Half an hour.
I mean, no, I would say half an hour. I mean, I would say it's difficult to tell. I would say a couple of hours is what they'd run at. I mean, I'd say a couple of hours.
So if it runs a couple of hours, then maybe one of the improvements you could do is see if you can reduce the total time, one thing. The other thing that you can do is to divide the tests, if it's not divided yet, into important and fast, and then slower and slower parts, and make sure that you run the fast ones really first. And if it fails, then you get feedback fast.
Yeah.
Okay. But making the test run. So this is one of the problems I encounter with quite often with my clients, that they have no tests. I go in, teach them how to write tests. 2 weeks later, I come back, and now their test running 3 hours. And then they complain that this is not good. And that's right, this is not good. They need to write tests that run within minutes, if possible. And there are various things that you can do. I don't know, setting up database, if you need to set up databases so you have them ready, and so on.
There is stuff like that we could do, and we'll definitely look at it. I mean, we're looking at the stuff that we've learned about Docker and Docker Compose and stuff. We're going to be using kind of those to essentially recover databases and things. So have a backup database. But one of the problems is that we very often change the data structure as part of a change. So Simon and I could be working on different, not hugely different, but in principle different versions of the database, which means that we can't. Anyway, we have to build the database and stuff, and then that's the thing that takes the time, really. Starts to take the time. Yeah,
but do you have to support multiple versions of your software, or you only have one?
Essentially one. Yeah.
Okay, that's much easier.
Yeah, it is much easier. Yeah.
Okay, shall we? Take a look at more. I mean, talk about a bit more about Git Flow, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Git Flow's got any implications with GitHub.
I don't know. It's just that I don't know if there is anything like that, but I mean, because I haven't used it for quite a while. The only thing I know, and I haven't checked, I think the GitHub also supports, is the locking of the main whatever branch. So you can lock certain branches that people can't push there.
Right.
Okay, and especially can't force push there. So you will protect that branch, and then only certain people can, and only merge from other branches, I guess.
Right. Okay.
It's protected branches.
I mean, that's kind of vaguely useful. We could do that now, but we don't. But I can see that we might.
Yeah, I just had we were working with a client, and the person there, by mistake, rewrote one of my last commits.
Okay.
They didn't amend, and so they ran a Git commit, which didn't succeed, but they didn't notice that it didn't succeed, and they wanted to amend it. So they ended up amending the previous commit.
Okay.
Okay. Luckily, they didn't push it out. So we could fix that. So, but I don't think that there is anything else to talk about.
No, I think that's an interesting discussion, actually.
Sorry?
This is an interesting discussion, and I mean, Simon can't actually attend the actual videos on a Tuesday, but he will definitely be very interested in this discussion.
Okay.
So that's good.
But shall we go over the parts here, or that's not interesting?
I think they're going to be just the same. I mean, if you bother to look up the Git flow thing, it actually kind of uses the same chart basically.
Yeah, I copied the chart. It's not my
I know,
chart.
but the Mercurial uses the same chart. Is what I'm trying to say. So
okay.
HG flow is logically the same as Git flow, but obviously
Okay.
the implementation is slightly different, but not hugely in many ways.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a nice thing, but I would prefer to work on so this is like, okay, so here we have real releases, like big releases. Okay. Yeah. And I think even if your client wouldn't want to accept every week a new release, okay, the fact that you are technically ready to release anytime. Oh, one more thing there. Okay, but the fact that you can release anytime, that's a very powerful thing. That then you don't have to worry that. So that's okay. That's one thing. And the point here also is that you, by creating this system of really good test coverage. So the question will be is, will you be able to trust your tests, or do you still need some people doing manual QA? Okay, because if you can trust your tests, okay, it doesn't mean that you don't need QA people to do exploratory testing, trying to find new ways to break the system and so on. But those will have to be triggers to write more tests, automated tests. Okay. Yeah. So if they find something that trigger to write an automated test.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're trying to. That is something that's ongoing. Really, we're trying to get.
And then if you can trust your tests, that means that you can deploy or anytime. Okay. And then it starts to depend on your marketing team probably, and the client or clients or whatever. Okay, when this happens. And the thing that I wanted to mention that I remembered suddenly in the middle is feature flags. Okay, so that's one of the things that probably should go with this idea. Okay. So a feature flag would be some configuration basically that enables or disables specific features of your software. So when you are working on a new feature, you would create first a flag for it, and the configuration file at the client will be off, and for you it will be on.
Okay.
Okay. So even if you are not ready with the feature yet, that's fine. The code is still in the main system. It's still being tested by the CI system together with all the rest of the code. But the client doesn't see this not half ready. It is half ready feature.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one of the keys, because if you start working on the same branch and then you and Simon and maybe other people working, you're not necessarily at the same point. You won't necessarily finish your features at the same time. Okay, and maybe one of you are done, one of you is already done, and then the other one is still working, and then what are you going to do? And that's when you would want to have a branch, because now you say, okay, I am already finished whatever goes into the next version. Now I'm going to work on something for the upcoming version. But and I don't want to mess the release. But if you're using feature branches, then this, and I'm not saying that's super easy, okay? I'm just saying that this is the idea behind, is then you can continue working on it and you can still verify that your code base together, everything works together.
Yeah. I guess. I'm not sure that's such a big thing.
Sorry?
I mean, most things, features in the system have got switches on them, basically. You know, you have them or you don't. So that's not such a big deal, really. But yeah, we could do that. Just
Okay.
just release the thing, but have it disabled in the release system, essentially.
Okay. So I was knocking on an open door, or
Yeah.
Banging on an open door, right? That's the
Pushing, I think, probably.
pushing. Okay. These translating these expressions is not working well all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, I think that's it for Git flow, I think, really.
Okay, so I had these slides back. That was quite a long time ago when I had created these slides for Git flow. I was just about to start to, and then this is what I started to write. This basically now I just started to write a collection of these ideas that here individual developer local changes only, and then individual developer local changes only, and using stash. And then sometimes they get pull requests, and here multiple developers on the same repo, basically what you are doing, I think. Okay, but then you can add also Git flow for hotfixes or whatever. And I still have to show the various things. Okay, so we saw earlier. We saw rebasing, right? We saw bisect. Let me check this one. So these are the notes I have. To find more projects with GitHub and write GitHub Actions, the specific projects that I'm working on was the cpan digger and on the cpan dashboard, if you are interested. These are, or we can pick one of the modules that you need to work on or would like to work on. One thing that you can do. So do you fix the versions of your dependencies, or do you just declare that you need mechanize, let's say, and whatever comes, it comes?
Yeah, whatever comes, it comes.
Yeah.
We tend not to, I mean, we have a very fixed regime, unless we get pushed into upgrading something because of security or other reasons. We tend to have a very static environment, so we wouldn't be updating things on a regular basis.
So you don't install from CPAN directly, but you have downloaded all the.
Yeah, we have a separate standalone. It's obviously based on CPAN, pulled in the things, but then we
That's
call it different that.
No, that's definitely. I mean, it's the funny sad thing sort of is that many projects. I mean, many projects just say, okay, just bring me the latest, okay, and that's horrible because everything can easily break. And then the next step in many projects, in many programming languages, is to have this configuration file that says which version you are using. And that's much better, but still, there was this big issue with JavaScript when the whole package was removed. So the whole history, all the versions were just removed from npm, I think. And then it doesn't matter that you say I'm using version 1, it's gone.
Yes.
Okay. So all this idea of configuration management, when you control all the things that go into your system, disappeared in that case. And this is the common practice, I think, in most projects these days. Okay, instead of what you are doing, that save all the files, that all the third-party libraries that you need, and whether it's in a same structure as CPAN, so you can install the CPAN module, CPAN with the CPAN client, or you have some other way to install them, but you already have fixed the version. But so this is much better, I think, in terms of configuration management. On the other hand, I would probably want to see the upgrading of the libraries, because and of course, for that, in order to make it smooth, you again need a good test coverage, because then you upgrade the library, you run the tests. If everything works fine. Okay. The reason I think upgrading is important is because many security issues, of course, that are being fixed, and at one point you might want to use the newer version of that library, but if this is like a jump of 3 years, then it will be very difficult, maybe, because maybe there are changes that are not and not that backward compatible. Now in Perl, it's less of an issue, because in general the libraries, I think, tend to be quite backward compatible as well, not just the language. So it's less of an issue. But I had a client where I was actually teaching there, and middle of the class they said, okay, our whole system is broken now. We are losing $10,000 a day. We just upgraded some system, and they went from, I don't know, Perl 5.6 to 5.12 or whatever happened. And there was something in the language that they used incorrectly earlier, but now it's because the language changed a little bit. Now it broke their system.
Yeah, we had problems with one of the libraries. I think it's one of the SOAP libraries, actually uses some of the what's the right name for it? The symbol table in Perl.
Yeah.
And so somebody updated the version of Perl, and then this broke all the SOAP transactions, which was pretty much a disaster. But yeah, it can happen.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. I mean, I think lastly, there's been a lot of change with SSL in particular. So a lot of the libraries that use that have, we've had to upgrade. But yeah, so we have to upgrade stuff from time to time. But it tends to be on a very limited basis.
So the thing is, and now I would even say slightly differently. I might not even. So I don't necessarily think that you need to upgrade, but I would at least have a version of my tests running once a while with the most recent release of everything.
Yeah.
To see that if any of those break, and then once a week, once a day, once a month, I don't know how often, but you run this, and then you notice that, okay, the newest release of something breaks our code, and then either you just open an issue for that. Maybe that's a breakage actually in that library. Okay.
Yeah.
That they didn't notice, and then you can open a bug report, and hopefully it will be fixed.
Yeah.
Before you actually need to really upgrade.
Yeah, I actually I develop in a slightly more advanced environment than is live, and it's picked up, because of that, it's picked up a few things. Do you remember a few releases ago, Perl's dropped dot from our ink?
Yeah.
And that was a big change. And there were one or two other changes like that have come along. And just recently, I upgraded my laptop at the weekend, and it's gone to Postgres 15, and I discovered that that's broken something. But you know, I can fix that all, and the fix will be in place for when we go to Postgres 15. So I think it's all good. Yeah, doing that. The slight downside is I started to use. I was using a slightly, I can't remember which version now, but something like Perl 5.28 a year or so ago, and I started to use a post dref. What's it called? You know, the dash. Anyway, whatever it is, and it was absolutely fine, but it was experimental in the version that we were actually using, and not there. It was actually not experimental in the version I was using. So I was using it merrily, but then when I put onto the development server, it broke. But it's easy to fix, so that's all right. But you're right. We ought to be. I mean, and that's something that we will be doing, is running under different versions of Perl and different versions of Postgres, all that kind of stuff for sure.
Let me see if this is still there. I already so this module, the test class, apparently it's still under my name. I became its maintainer a couple of years ago, and then it passed it on. But to Mark Gardner, apparently he hasn't released a new version yet. But one of the things I think in this project I put in, which I am pretty proud of, its CI system. So the way it works. Okay, so one of this, we can go over the whole thing, but one of the things it does is after it tested itself, its own tests, it's testing selected downstream modules. So I searched on MetaCPAN which other modules are using this one, and then I'm running the test of those modules with the source, with the version that I just pushed out to GitHub. So I will notice if the new version breaks anything, and that's something that or ideas like this I would recommend adding to your dependencies. So whatever module you're dependent, I would invest in some energy in making sure they have CI set up, at least, but maybe also adding this, so they will also test some other downstreams. So if as they work, it's less likely that they break anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the way it works, I think, is that, and it hasn't, well, I see this one is updated, but the first thing in this CI is using an Ubuntu image. I'm not sure why there are multiple versions here. It runs installs whatever needed, runs the regular tests, install some extra dependencies that are needed for more tests. Okay, so the auto tests and so on. Release tests, then those are also executed. So this is sort of like, okay, if the regular tests fail, then don't, that's the, so this is also the little bit the idea of what I told you, that the fast tests earlier, well, not the fast, the important was earlier. Shall we have a break?
Yeah, it's a good plan. Sorry, my dog's whining.
Okay, so let's have a break and then I can go on with this, okay?
Okay, good.
So 10 minutes,
Okay.
let's say, okay?
Okay.
See you then.